Did you know that in Singapore, over 100,000 cameras watch people every single day? That's one camera for every 55 people. And this number is growing fast. Singapore is called the world's smartest city. On the surface, it looks perfect. Clean streets, no traffic jams, and everything works like magic. Your phone can do anything here. Pay for food, catch a train, or even talk to the government. It's like living in the future. But there's something most people don't know. Behind all this amazing technology, there's a dark side that no one talks about. Today, I'm going to show you what really happens in Singapore. The things tourists never see and the government doesn't want you to know. In 2014, Singapore started something big. They called it the Smart Nation Project. The goal? To use technology to control everything in the city. And they spent big money on it. Over $3.3 billion just to get started. Today, Singapore is unlike any other city in the world. When you get sick, AI doctors check your x-rays faster than human doctors. Your kids' school attendance is marked automatically when they walk through the gate. Even the trash bins are smart. They tell cleaners when they're full. The numbers are amazing. 9 in 10 people in Singapore use smartphones to do everything. You can start a business in just 15 minutes using your phone. Want to pay your taxes? 3 clicks and you're done. Need a document from the government? No waiting in line. Just use an app. The streets are different too. Traffic lights think for themselves, changing when they see traffic building up. This has cut travel time by 20%. In some areas, buses drive themselves. And if you're on the train, you don't need tickets anymore. Just walk in, and cameras know who you are and charge your account. Even the trees are connected to the internet. Yes, really. 500,000 trees have sensors that check if they're healthy. If a tree might fall, the system knows before it happens. When it rains too much, sensors and drains tell the city where flooding might happen. During COVID-19, Singapore showed how powerful their system is. Their tracking app could find anyone who might be sick in just a few hours. Other countries tried to copy this, but nobody did it as well as Singapore. Big tech companies love Singapore so much that they're moving there. Google, Facebook, and Microsoft have all built huge offices in Singapore. The United Nations says Singapore is the smartest city in the world, and other cities are trying to learn from it. But here's the thing, all this amazing technology comes with a big price. A price that's not about money, but about something more important. Your freedom. What you're about to learn next might change how you really happens when a city knows everything about you. Remember those 100,000 cameras I mentioned? That's just the beginning. By 2030, Singapore plans to put cameras on every single lamppost in the country. That's like having an eye watching you on every street. Here's a real example. Last year, if you walked in a park and sat too close to someone else, a robot dog would roll up to you and tell you to move apart. It sounds funny, but think about it. A robot was watching how close you got to other people. And this robot, called SPOT, is still out there, watching people in parks today. Your phone? It's like a tracking device in Singapore. The government app, Trace Together, was supposed to be just for COVID-19. But even after COVID ended, people still had to use it to enter many buildings. Every shop you visit, every train you take, every mall you walk into, it's all recorded. The government says this data is safe, but in 2021, they admitted they used Trace Together data for police investigations, breaking their own promise. But it gets worse. In your home, smart meters track how much electricity and water you use. Every hour of every day. Smart bins know what you throw away. Smart sensors in public housing can tell if you're smoking in forbidden areas. They even know when you're having too many visitors in your home. Let me give you some scary numbers. In just 1 year, Singapore's cameras caught over 4,700 people for wrongdoing in public areas. That includes things like parking bicycles in the wrong place or feeding pigeons. Sounds small? Well, all these small things add up to control every part of your life. Your car, every move is tracked. Singapore uses something called electronic road pricing, ERP. It's like a toll system, but it tracks every road you drive on and charges you based on the time of day. They know exactly where you drive, when you drive, and how often you go somewhere. Even kids aren't free from watching eyes. In schools, facial recognition systems track when students come and go. Some schools even use AI to check if students are paying attention in class. Think about growing up knowing you're always being watched. The scariest part? All this data stays forever. Every move you make, every place you go, every person you meet, it's all stored in huge government databases. And while Singapore says this data is protected, in 2020, the health records of 14,200 people with HIV were leaked online. Another time in 2019, the personal data of 800,000 blood donors was exposed on the internet. Nobody can escape this watching system. If you want to live in Singapore, you have to accept that privacy doesn't exist anymore. And while the government says all this surveillance is for safety and efficiency, it raises a big question. At what point does a smart city become a surveillance city? But wait, there's something even more worrying than just being watched. Let me tell you about what this technology is doing to regular people's lives. Now let's talk about real people and how this technology is changing their lives, and not always in a good way. Meet Uncle Tan, a 68-year-old who ran a small food stall for 30 years. Last year, his hawker center went fully digital. No more cash payments, only phones and apps. Uncle Tan, who barely knows how to use a smartphone, saw his business drop by 30%. He's not alone. Studies show that 40% of Singaporeans over 60 struggle with digital payments. Many elderly people feel left behind in their own country. Then there's the job situation. In 2022, Singapore's banks replaced 150 ATMs with digital services. Sound small? Well, 1,500 bank workers lost their jobs. Taxi drivers are worried too. With self-driving cars being tested on the roads, many fear they'll be jobless soon. The government says technology creates new jobs, but here's the truth. Most new jobs need high-tech skills that many older workers don't have. Mental health is another big problem. A recent study found that 71% of young Singaporeans feel stressed about always being connected and watched. Some people call it digital anxiety. Imagine knowing that every time you step outside, cameras are watching you. Every purchase you make, every bus you take, every person you meet, it's all recorded. Kids are feeling it too. In Singapore's schools, AI systems track not just attendance, but also how much students participate in class, their friends, and even their moods, like talking to neighbors have changed. People used to chat in void decks, public spaces under apartments. But now, with cameras everywhere, many feel uncomfortable hanging out in public spaces. The kampong spirit, community feeling, that Singapore was famous for is disappearing. But there's another side to this story that nobody talks about. What all this technology is doing to our planet. And trust me, it's not what you'd expect. Here's something that might surprise you. Singapore's smart city isn't as green as they want you to believe. Let me show you why. All those cameras, sensors, and computers need power. Lots of it. Singapore's data centers, huge buildings full of computers, use enough electricity to power 60,000 homes. That's more than 7% of the country's total electricity. And guess what? Most of this electricity still comes from burning fossil fuels. Think about your old phones and laptops. Where do they go? Singapore produces over 60,000 tons of e-waste every year. That's the weight of about 220 jumbo jets. The government started an e-waste recycling program in 2021. But here's the shocking part. Only 6% of all e-waste actually gets recycled. The rest, it either sits in landfills or gets shipped to poorer countries. Those smart lampposts we talked about earlier, installing them means cutting down trees and digging up roads. In 2022 alone, Singapore removed 200 mature trees to make way for smart city infrastructure. Yes, they plant new trees, but young trees don't help cool the city as well as old ones. Heat is another big problem. All those computers and data centers make the city hotter. Scientists found that areas near Singapore's data centers are 2 degrees Celsius warmer than other parts of the city. This makes people use more air conditioning, which uses more electricity, which makes more heat. It's a never-ending cycle. Remember those self-driving cars and smart traffic systems? They need thousands of sensors and computers. Each sensor needs rare metals like lithium and cobalt. Mining these metals causes huge environmental damage in other countries. So while Singapore's streets look clean, The real environmental cost is hidden far away. But here's the most worrying part. All this technology isn't just hurting our environment. It's changing how the government controls people's lives. And what I'm about to tell you next might make you think twice about wanting to live in a smart city. Let's talk about the real power behind all this technology. Control. And I mean control of everything you do. In Singapore, your life now runs on a point system, even if they don't call it that. Have a fine for littering. It goes on your permanent record. Park your bike in the wrong place? That's recorded too. Cross the road at the wrong time? The cameras know. All these small things add up, and they affect everything, from getting an apartment to your kids getting into good schools. Here's a real story. In 2023, a man couldn't get his housing loan approved because cameras caught him smoking in a no-smoking zone 3 times. The system flagged him as someone who doesn't follow rules. This isn't just about following laws anymore. It's about controlling behavior. The scariest part? Singapore is testing a system that can predict suspicious behavior. Using AI cameras, they watch how people walk, what they carry, and who they talk to. If the system thinks you're acting strange, it alerts the police. In just 6 months of testing, this system flagged over 3,000 people. Many were just having a bad day or were lost tourists. Your phone is like an electronic ankle bracelet. Apps like One Service encourage people to report their neighbors for small things like noise or hanging laundry wrongly. In 2022, this app received 400,000 reports. That's over 1,000 people reporting their neighbors every day. Even what you say online is watched. Under Singapore's fake news law, POFMA, the government can force anyone to change or remove posts they think are wrong. Since 2019, they've used this law over 100 times. The scary thing? The government decides what's fake. There's no independent checking. So here we are. Singapore shows us what happens when a city becomes too smart for its own good. Yes, the trains run on time. Yes, the streets are clean. Yes, crime is low. But at what cost? The question isn't whether technology is good or bad. The question is, how much control are we willing to give up for convenience? When does a smart city become a surveillance prison? Other cities are rushing to copy Singapore's model. London is adding AI cameras. Dubai is building its own smart city. Even small towns are installing smart. Ask these questions. Who controls the data? What happens to your privacy? Can you say no to being tracked? Because once these systems are in place, there's no going back. Remember, the future isn't set in stone. We can choose to use technology that helps people without controlling them. We can build cities that are both smart and free. What kind of future do you want to live in? The choice is still yours for now.